Yes, I wasn't going to make a video like this. I wasn't. But I just put a fairly lengthy status up on Facebook relating to this subject that I'm going to be doing in this video. As you can see by the title page, I'm talking about my thoughts on horror films, like modern day horror films. Just generally what my thoughts are on them as to what I usually enjoy watching and to the offerings that we've had for the past, I don't know, I'd say I've been very on and off with horror for about 5 years now. Horror used to be one of my all-time favourite mediums, genres, movie genres. It used to be, I used to be so into horror when I was like in my early teens. The very first horror film I ever actually watched, it wasn't all the way through, it was about maybe about 10 minutes into the film, give or take. But there's a funny story with this, but my mum, bless her heart, so I must have only been about maybe 11 or 12. The very first proper horror film slasher was the original The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And why there's a funny story with this is because my mum and dad had gone to bed and I was downstairs. I often, and still do, as I'm doing now, I would stay up pretty late. If I didn't have school the next day, if it was like weekend or whatever, I would stay up and maybe watch a film or just chill out. My mum or my dad must have turned the TV on and put it, I think it was on Channel 5, I think it was, maybe Channel 4. My mum, in a way, my mum shouldn't have really said anything because I wouldn't have actually have seen the film. Basically, she said to me to not turn over to Channel 5 or whatever channel it was on, and it is absolutely horrific. I don't want you watching it because it's an awful film, terrible film. Typical kid. What do I go and do next? I turn the TV over to the channel, and it's at the point where you know, the murderer, I've forgotten the guy's name now, Leatherface, there we go. So when he is just about to meat hook that girl, he picks her up and just puts her on a big hook. So I turn it over just at that point, and from that point on, I was glued to the screen, glued to the TV, and I watched the entire of the rest of the film from that point. Obviously, I've seen the film many times, so I know exactly what happens from start to finish, but I missed like maybe the first 10 minutes of the film. Why I want to make this video is because I'm currently just been watching Slender Man. It's on Netflix, and I have spoken about my thoughts on horror on this channel, I think, quite a bit back, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe more. But I wanted to just make a dedicated video and to just truly try and bring over as to what I like and what I don't like about horror films. And what I like about horror films is I'm a big fan of psychological horror. Horror films that have that essence of what you just watched, it stays with you. And also probably is the root of like things that you're scared it makes you scared of really funny silly things. Like the first time I watched the original Ju-on the Grudge, the Japanese film, I was terrified of going into a loft or an attic because of that darkness, because when you see the spirit of that woman in the house and she comes down, then I think within the first 2 films, you know, you have those where she's this really horrible contortionist actress that played the spirit. I've forgotten her name, the woman's name now, but she, you know, the way that she came down the stairs and little things like that, and you hear her bones cracking and all that kind of thing. It's psychological, and it's also very, very, whoa, this is disgusting. And that kind of stuff really resonated with me, and I really truly love I love the first two, anyways, of the Jew on the Grudge. They made a third one in partnership with America, and that's crap. And also the remakes where Sam Raimi was actually involved with. For me, they don't hold a candle to the Japanese ones, in my opinion. The original Ju-on ones. The American ones, it's just basically they're still in Japan, but for some reason they've gone for Sarah Michelle Gellar instead. Obviously English speaking cast, but it's all still set in Japan. And then obviously you got the new one that came out, I think last year or this year, I can't remember, and they completely just destroyed it. They basically just made it completely fully American. The whole idea of a cursed building, a cursed house is no longer really relevant. It's now just an average American home. And it's just this, from the trailer, all I got from it was this weird old woman that kept laughing, and I don't know. I hate it when Hollywood destroy remake stuff and just don't get the idea behind how they can. I mean, a lot of horror directors now. I mean, don't get me wrong, Sam Raimi, he is one of the best. But whenever he produces something or is an executive producer, the films seem to suck ass. There's only one film for me by Sam Raimi that I really like, and it's the remake to Evil Dead, mainly because, really, because I was Sam Raimi, he directed the original Evil Dead films, and they are my favourites, one of my favourites, two of my favourites, and obviously you got Army of Darkness, which is like a spoof, more like a spoofy film, but it is kind of relevant to the past two films as well. I love horror. I do love horror. I've been a fan for years, since I was like 11 or 12. But the problem is with me is, like I said, I know I'm kind of repeating myself there, but I just want to kind of drill it in that I love horror films that have a psychological and this really uneasy atmosphere to it, where it just makes you feel uncomfortable when you're watching it. And I feel, for me, I'm wondering if my problem is the type of films I've watched at such a young age. It has caused me to become desensitized to these films as time's gone on. That's probably my problem. But for me, I love the aspect of that really uneasiness, where there's that uneasy silence. With just taking Joe on the Grudges, the original Japanese ones, the first two at least, just taking those two films as an idea, as a just to give you an idea. They are both very simplistic films, very simple films, very simple story plot. They're easy to follow, but they are very clever as well, because there's little twists and turns. There's all these different characters that are coming in and out, and they're all all these characters come into it. They all go to the house and end up being cursed by this spirit that resides in the house, and everyone has these little stories, and the way that it's done in a way that, for me, when I watched it, it felt very refreshing. And I've never said before me seeing the original Grudge for the first time, I had never seen anything quite like it before. It was just something really interesting. Yeah, there is some quite long drawn out aspects to it, but the problem is the story is so well done, and also the cinematography and the way that they they made the film with very probably minimal budget, and obviously they used a type of contortionist. They used a contortionist actress to play the spirit, and she was able to do all those really horrible, really twisted, horrible things with her body. So it added to it. And I know that they did that as well. They kind of did that kind of thing with The Exorcist as well, where they used a contortionist actress to do the whole staircase walk. So it's not the first film to use that a contortionist actress in a scene like that. But no, I mean, for me it just felt refreshing because I hadn't seen anything quite like it. And even though it was a little bit drawn out with the with the interaction with characters, but it worked because it was like a puzzle, and there was so much going on. But the way that it all ended up coming up and meeting in the middle, and everything what was going on, it all revolved around this spirit of this girl, this woman in the house, and the curse. It was really well done. And then obviously I'm a big fan of the stuff by like Wes Craven, Clive Barker. Absolutely love the Hellraiser films. So I'm a big fan of stuff like that, where like stuff from like the 70s and 80s. I'm really a big fan of that kind of stuff, and obviously I love my zombie movies as well. That's another thing. I'm going to leave that for another video and possibly another future video topic. Getting to the point now, as I wrap this video up, as to what I hate about modern day horror. Obviously, it's all been developed around this like Paranormal Activity. Those films are don't even get me started on them. Everything has to be shaky cam. There's nothing like steady cam anymore. There's nothing where it's pretty well, proper directing, I'd call it. Where it's all been really well. Right, the director really knows what he wants from this scene, and he really goes up close to what's going on, and you can tell the director has passion from the way that the camera is being held and the way that where he puts the camera, etc., or she puts the camera. But the problem is now it's all this shaky cam and bringing in the element of social media where a demon possesses a freaking computer or the internet and uses social media or Skype as a medium. I understand, it's just been creative with the horror thing. The only decent horror I've seen very recently is that Haunted House series that's on Netflix. I've forgotten the haunting of. I've forgotten the name of it. Let me know in the comments. I've forgotten the name of it. But yeah, that's a good series. That is proper decent horror. Nothing happens for ages, and that really infuriates me with horror films when nothing happens for fucking ages. Nothing happens for so long, and then when something does happen, you just don't have the desired effect that they wanted you to have because you've given up on the film at this point, and you're just like, I just want to fall asleep, because by the time something does happen, something that was scary, you just ended up just like, meh. That's me anyway. That's what I'm like with horror. I am so picky when it comes to horror. I really am. I mean, I've just been watching Slender Man now, and I heard bad things about it when it first came out, but I thought, you know what, I'll just watch it for myself. And for me, it just has nothing going for it. It has no atmosphere. It's building on the whole thing, something that died out. Like, this movie came out too late because it's building upon that whole thing from years ago with the whole Slender Man thing. And so this movie is irrelevant now. Completely irrelevant because nobody's talking about it anymore, and it has no atmosphere. It's dead. It's completely dead. It's just how I feel of how horror films are now. They don't have the essence of shock. They don't have that shock factor. When I was watching stuff from like 70s and 80s, it was like, who gives a shit? Just, the amount of freaking horrible crap that I used to watch, some really bloody hell. How did they get away with that kind of thing? I find it really depressing because it is something that I used to be really passionate about, and but now I put a horror film on now and I end up not finishing it, and it annoys me because I just don't feel invested in the story. I don't feel invested in most of the characters, and I can't be asked about what the hell they are scared of, what they're running away from, because by the time that comes around, I've already switched off because the story isn't going anywhere. The characters are really bad, and it's just been drawn on, and there's so many films that piggyback on the exact same thing now. It's the same formula for nearly every film that I've seen, horror film that I've seen within the past 10 years. I mean, I love demonic possession movies. I love them. Like, obviously, I'm a big fan of The Exorcist, and there are some pretty decent examples from years ago. But now they're all just trying to be The Exorcist, or they're trying to be. They're putting so much emphasis into the film to be it because they want it to be so whatever it is. But then it's just so watered down. The only the only thing that's horrible is that you might get a bit of like demon voice from a young girl, like this really deep, demonic voice. That's the only shocking thing you get from it. I don't know. It's just it annoys me. That's the video. Thanks for watching. Comment below if you watched the video all the way through. Let me know in comments below what you think about how horror is. Let me know what your opinion is on it as well. You are all awesome. Thank you for your support on the channel, and I'll be back very soon, and I'll be doing my collection room update video within the next couple of days or so. I know I keep saying that of each video I come out, but I am definitely going to be doing that. That will be coming soon. So thank you so much. Peace.